Well, pretty interesting stuff there. And Joshua, I guess I'm interested from your point of view as the person who was most recently recruited on this panel. Could this be a growing trend?
I think in a way. I think we're starting to see a culture shift among young black people. You know, I talked to my dad, and he was a teenager in the late 60s and early 70s, and they used to wear the afros. He enrolled at HBCU for his first year of college before transferring back home, and I think we're starting to see some of those same things coming back where, you know, you're seeing more of a pride movement for young black people. We wear our hair naturally. You know, we kind of really invest ourselves in the things that we want to celebrate and the traditions and the culture. And our young black athletes are doing that right now. And when you look at an HBCU, it makes perfect sense. It's a place where your history isn't necessarily an elective, but it is the default, and your traditions are something to be celebrated. It's a place where if you do wear your hair naturally, you don't have to worry about people asking if they can touch it. You know, it's a place where you don't have to worry about walking into a building on campus that's named after somebody who owned slaves. And I think all of those things are becoming more and more important, especially for young people who are interested in experiences as much as the utility of the experience. So will we see a huge shift? I'm not necessarily sure about that, but I'm sure the consideration will be taken for a lot of these young athletes when they make their decision on where to go to school.
Yeah, Joshua, I think a lot of people are going to consider it, but I think from a football standpoint, I think it's going to still be a very difficult decision for young people to make, because I think at the end of the day, people want to be, and these young folks want to be in the best possible situation they can be in, where they can train, where they can study. And right now, a lot of the HBCUs don't have the type of facilities that some of the other schools that are going to be recruiting these young people have. But I'll tell you an interesting thought that I have from it. I think with the transfer portal opening up, with people having this being a free year, having another year, I think you're going to see some people make the decision who've already graduated and then decide to go to that HBCU, because they'll have the ability to get that experience, and maybe they don't have to live on campus and they can live off campus, and they're a little bit older and they can understand what they're getting involved in. I still just think it's going to be tough for high school students to make that commitment from a football standpoint.
Certainly tougher in football than basketball by virtue of the size of the rosters. But I think both of you guys make great points. I mean, to your point, Joshua, considering would be part of the education, right? To find out about these historic schools and their past, to make it one of your 5 visits, even if you don't have real intent of going there. What a great experience, and maybe what a great opportunity for a young black person being highly recruited to do. And Howard, to your point, I mean, really practical, right? Grad transfer with the transfer portal, without the penalty of sitting out a year. It's given all athletes a lot more flexibility and a lot more freedom than they have in the past. And this would be a way for someone that went to a historically white school to go to a historically black school because of the freedom of movement. So obviously, I don't have the same feel for it like you two guys do, but both of you, I think, have made really good points, things that I hadn't thought about.
It feels to me like there's 2 different components to this, right? Howard, you were addressing more of the athletic part of it, and that the competition level isn't going to be the same. The facilities might not be the same. And Joshua, you were talking a little bit more about it socially. And of course, in a social circumstance, you might feel more comfortable in a surrounding like that. And it feels like, Josh, that's kind of the balancing act here, is which overrides it? Is the social more important, or is the competitive more important? And we're not quite at that point where you could say it's close enough competitively that I want to make that move.
Yeah, and I think that's probably the most difficult part about it is, you know, you can go to these predominantly white schools and you can find a lot of the same cultural and social centers that you would find at an HBCU. It might be a little bit harder to find. It might be a little bit more spread out, but they do exist. But I will point out, though, that there is a history of lineage from HBCUs where we see a number of celebrities, where we see a number of politicians. The next vice president of the United States of America is a graduate of an HBCU. So there is a little bit of tradition there for people who want to be trailblazers and you know, people on the forefront who are excelling in whatever they're doing. to go to an HBCU, but it's going to take a lot to see that shift to happen for athletes because everything's ready made at Ohio State or Wisconsin or even Northwestern. You go to an HBCU, and on the athletic side, it's definitely going to be a different experience.
And I think that's the important distinction you just made on the athletic side of things, because traditionally I've had several friends that have gone to an HBCU and then have gone on to Michigan or Indiana or Illinois, or that have gone to FAMU and then gone to the University of Florida. So it's happened with regular traditional studies. People have gone to those schools, but then gone and done their grad work elsewhere. I just think it's still going to be tough for that student athlete to make that type of commitment, knowing that they may not be getting the best facilities and the best training that they could possibly get in chasing their dreams. I tell you, Deion Sanders is really going to test that theory down at Jackson State, being the new head coach there.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. You mentioned the facilities, and of course we saw the Grambling situation a few years ago. The players put out pictures of dilapidated facilities. They walked out briefly. There was talk they were buying their own Gatorade. So you're going to have to get past all of that stuff. But